Welcome to another edition of the Postgame Wrap. I'm Jarret Johnson, and boy, Texas Tech sure did get pushed around in Austin on Saturday, except for their first defeat of the season. And final score was 70-35, but it was much worse than that. I mean, that score doesn't really tell just how thoroughly the Longhorns dominated the Red Raiders. And, we had a question going into this game is this defense for real? Just how good is Texas Tech's defense, because of the competition they play? Well, the answer is it's not good at all. In fact, right now, I have to say this defense is terrible. And it starts with the defensive coordinator. I did not like the scheme. His players were not lined up half the time. There was a couple of times, at least one third down in the second half, and I think in the first half as well, where they didn't even have enough guys on the field. They had 10 guys on the field. How do you defend that? So the result is Texas, a fired up Texas, a Texas team that showed up ready to play its Big 12 opener, that showed Texas Tech respect by dominating them. They actually scored touchdowns on 9 of their first 10 possessions. Think about that. 9 of their first 10 offensive possessions were touchdowns, and the one that wasn't was intercepted in the end zone. So, for those wanting me to come up with some silver lining or some positive aspect of this game, it's not happening. I actually was talking with Mighty Joe, and I'm sure with his Jaeger shots, he'll have something positive about Columbia, and that's great that he played well. But again, the game was already out of hand. I like what I've seen from Columbia and all that. In this offseason, I think he could be a very effective quarterback, but don't expect me to be doing cartwheels about anyone's performance for Texas Tech in this 70-35 loss. I predicted that Texas would win. I had Texas winning in the preseason. I had Texas winning, this week. I said I thought it would be a close game, and I did. But am I surprised Tech got crushed in Austin by Texas? No. That happens. But am I surprised that the defense looked so bad, was just so thoroughly bullied? Because that's what they were. They were pushed around and bullied by Texas. Was I surprised that Tech all of a sudden forgot how to tackle? Was I surprised that they were physically manhandled and at times looked intimidated? Yeah, I really was. I am. I'm surprised at that. I didn't think this team was the type of team that would be bullied by anybody. Beaten? Would they lose to them? Sure. I've said, and I continue to believe, this is a 7-win team this season, which I think a lot of fans would be like, 7 wins? They may not win another game this season. And coming off this game, I completely understand that reasoning or that response. I will say it's a week-to-week proposition in college football. So, just because they looked terrible, and they looked terrible, I'm making zero excuses for this team and this performance today against Texas. But just because that happened doesn't mean they're going to be terrible again next week. Well, it doesn't mean they won't either. So, because they're going to be playing West Virginia in Morgantown, so it's not exactly easy. That being said, I definitely want to see if they respond and how they bounce back. But don't be expecting me to be touting this defense and saying it's a good front seven and the linebackers are great and all that. I continue to be shocked at that performance by the defense. But, part of it was, like I said, they weren't even, first off, when they had opportunities to make tackles, they didn't. They looked terrible. They looked weak. But before that, they were out-schemed. They got out-schemed. This just almost defiance in continuing to rush just 3, but play this soft zone where you don't cover anybody, so you're not really rushing enough, but you don't have enough, or your scheme isn't enough to where you're actually covering people well in the back end. So I don't understand what the idea is there. It's very frustrating. So if you look at the whole game, not just the defense, but certainly the defense. You got absolutely thoroughly dominate on defense. Your offensive line got pushed around some, a lot of penalties, a lot of mistakes. Tyler Shuck, I didn't even mention that. He got hurt. Collarbone injury. That sounds like it's going to be for a while. So you got Columbia in there, or Donovan Smith. I haven't seen Barrymore in the true freshman, but I mean, Columbia didn't do anything for us to think he's not going to be the starter in place of Shuck. But I mean, your defense got dominated. Your offense didn't play very good. There were some explosive plays. The game was already out of hand, though, so I don't know how much to take from that. And then your special teams didn't look good either. I mean, long returns and everything. You're just thoroughly dominated, and there's not a whole lot more to say about this game other than I'm very disappointed for fans out there. I'm disappointed, for the team. It's going to happen sometimes. Sometimes you just go out there and you get beat. You get beat like that. But then again, to be thoroughly dominated like that is demoralizing. So, they're going to have to do some real soul searching when they get back to Lubbock. They're going to have to look each other in the eyes and look at the film and figure out what's going on and come up with some different schemes. Have your guys ready. Have enough guys on the field and have your guys lined up and ready to play a play. That's a good start. But beyond that, they're going to have to figure some things out because that's not going to work. That's going to get people. I'm not calling for anybody's job, but that kind of performance is how people lose jobs. Plain and simple. That's what happens. Big boy football, and that was. There's no defending what Texas Tech produced in Austin today, and the way they went about losing the game 70-35 was what got my attention the most. Like I said, not being lined up, not having enough guys on the field, just being totally out schemed. Obviously the team got off to another slow start, or it wasn't ready to play out of the gate. It's frustrating. Now, it doesn't mean the whole season's over. It doesn't mean they can't win in Morgantown next week. Doesn't mean they won't get to 7 wins like I've been saying, for whatever that's worth. But this was a major setback. I'm not sure what's worse, blowing that 15-point lead with 3 minutes left, or being embarrassed on national television where the announcers are just running down your program constantly for everyone to hear and see. And you can't, there's no argument, right? What can you say? You have to just grin and bear it. Tough loss. I'm laughing just because I don't know what else to do. I don't want to over dramatize, a football game, but that was really rough. So that was one of the toughest losses in terms of the worst I've seen Texas Tech play in some time. And it's one of the all-time worst defensive performances by Texas Tech, which is a mouthful. So we're going to have more content. We'll have the day after podcast. By the time you're watching this, the Jaeger shots may have already been posted as well. And then we'll, next week is a new week. We'll be covering leading up to the West Virginia game as well. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.